Hi friends, welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're gonna be creating this simple CSS mug or coffee cup that has some animation effects. As you can see, it's blinking and you have some steam coming up. So we're gonna use CSS, and by the end of this tutorial you should be able to build a basic simple CSS art. So let's go to our desktop. We're gonna create a new folder and we're gonna call it CSS coffee cup. So I'll right click and I'm gonna open it in VS Code. Now that it's open in VS Code, we're gonna right click, we create a new file and we call it index.html. This is where we shall put our HTML files, and then I'll create another file and I'll call it style.css. So inside our index.html, I will create HTML structure and I will just call it cute CSS coffee cup. And then below the title, I'm gonna link our CSS as well, and it's gonna be style.css. Now I'm gonna open this in browser. Now inside the body, we are going to create a div and we're gonna give it a class of scene. And inside this div class scene, we are going to also create another div and give it a class of steam. Then inside the steam, we shall create 3 empty span tags. So span, then span tag, and that is it. So after this, we're gonna create another class and we're gonna call it cup itself. And inside the cup, we are going to create another class. We're gonna call it coffee. And right below the coffee, let's write another div and we give it class face. And inside the face, let's create a div and we give it span. We're gonna give it eye, and another span, we're going to give it the second eye. Then below this div, this particular div, let us give it a class of mouth, div.mouth. So this is the face class, and then right below the face class, we are gonna create another div and call it handle. So after that, the class is done, and just outside the cup class, we're gonna create another div and we give it a class of saucer, and then we shall also create another div and we shall call this one shadow. Now this is our HTML, very simple. And now it's time to go and write our CSS. So I'll go to styles.css. You want to make sure that it's linked from here, so it's linked as you can see. So we shall go to our file and we're gonna give general style, and we're gonna say margin 0, padding 0, box sizing, let's give it border box. So after that, let's style our body. The body is what is carrying all the contents of the web page. We're gonna give it a height of 100 vertical height, and we're gonna give it a display of flex, and we're gonna justify content center and align items center. Then we're going to give it a background. Let's make it linear gradient. And we say to bottom, comma. And then let's give it the color 8E, 8D8, comma. And then we give another color F2C9A1. So that's the color we have. Then we shall say overflow. Let's make it hidden. Then font family. Let's do sans serif. This will work. So next, we are going to style the scene. This class, scene. So I'll come here to style classes. You write a dot and then the class name. So we're going to give it a position of relative. We're going to give it a width of 300 pixels. And we're going to give it a height of 350 pixels. So just after the scene, we're going to style the steam class. Let's give it a position. I go with absolute. Top, let's give it 40 pixels. So we're gonna do transform and we do translate negative 50%. Then we do display flex and we give it a gap of 12 pixels. So after styling steam, we are going to style steam. We're going to style the span tags within steam, and let's do width 12 pixels. Let's give it a height of 80. Let's give it a border radius of 50%. Then let's give it a background. We do RGBA. Red we go with 255. Green we also go with 255. The blue we also do 255. Then alpha we shall do 0.5. So now that is our theme. Then we're gonna filter. Let's do filter. Let's go with blur. Just make it 3 pixels. So it appears a bit blurry. And let's animate it. So we shall do animation. And let's give it theme. 3 seconds infinite is in out, which is right here. So after that, we are going to style theme, span, and do the nth child 2, and we shall just do animation delay 0.5 seconds. Then we shall also repeat this theme, span nth child 3, and make the animation delay 1 second. So after this, let's do some keyframes for the theme. So I'll do keyframes, theme, remove the dot. 0%, we shall say transform, translate Y, 0, space, and then we scale 1. We shall say opacity 0. So you can see the animation is taking effect. So let's do 20% and do opacity 1. You can see how the movement has changed. And let's also do 50%. I'll say transform, translate Y, and let's do -80 pixels. Then I'll scale X 2. So this one was supposed to also be scale X. Please go back and change that. You can see the movement. Then I'll also do opacity 0. Okay, at 50%, let's do this as -30. And then we do scale X 1.5. You notice the difference? Then let's do for 100. I'm going to do transform, translate Y. And let's do -80 pixels here. And then scale X to 2. Now this is our steam moving, and then let's also give it opacity of 0. Now we are done with the steam and the keyframes. Now you can see the steam is moving. Now let us go and proceed and style our cap. So this is what we have all been waiting for. So for the cap, I'm gonna give it position absolute, and I'm gonna give it bottom 70 pixels. I'm gonna do left 70%, then transform, translate X, and let's give it -50%. Then width 180 pixels, height 140 pixels, and now let's give it a background. Let's make it white for F. Then let's give it a border radius of 0, 0, 35 pixels. These are the different corners, 35 pixels. Look at that. So we're gonna give it a box shadow. We'll say insert 0, -10 pixels, 0. We do RGBA. The red, we give it 0. The green, we give it also 0. The blue, we give it 0. And then alpha, let's give it 0.5, right? And then comma, we're gonna do 0, 10 pixels, 25 pixels. Then RGBA. Red, we're gonna do 0. Green, we're also gonna do 0. Blue, we're gonna do 0. Alpha, we're gonna do 0.15. 0.15. I think that is it. Remove that. Then let's make 0.05. So now we're gonna do cap before. Now let's put some content inside and put an empty. Position, we're gonna do absolute. Top, let's do -18 pixels. Left, let's go with 0. Width, let's do 180 pixels. Height, let's give it 35 pixels. Then let's give it a background. FD. Then border radius 50%. So you can see the curve has changed. And then box shadow, I'm gonna go with insert 0, 5 pixels, 0, RGBA, red we do 0, green we do 0, blue we do 0, then alpha let's do 0.05. 0.05. So you see that little highlight over there. After that, let's now style the coffee. We're gonna give it a position of absolute, right? We're gonna do, okay, so let's check out this cap. It's supposed to be right below the stem. So let's fix that. Just say left 50%. Yeah, this works. Okay, now let's proceed to coffee. Give it a position of absolute, and then let's give it a top of -5 pixels, left 10 pixels, width 160, and then height of 25 pixels. So now let's give it a background. We're gonna give it a coffee color. Let's say #6 F4E37. Oh yeah, that's the coffee color. Then we're gonna do border radius 50%. Now let's give the cap a handle. Let's tell the handle class position absolute, right? Let's give it -38. Top, let's put it at 35 pixels. Width is 60 pixels. Height, let's give it 70. Then let's give it a border, 10 pixels, solid. Then let's give it a color. Let's make it white. Now our handle is there. So I'm gonna do border left. Let's give it 10 pixels, solid transparent. Then border radius 50%. Now our mug is taking shape slowly, as you can see. Now remember our mug had a face, so now let's style the face. So for the face we are going to go with the position absolute. We're going to give it a width of 100%. Top, let's give it 55 pixels. Text align center. That is for the face. Now let's put the components of the face. And the first component was the eye. So we're going to give the eye a width of 12 pixels. Height also, let's give it 12. Then let's give it a background. I think we should make the background black. Let's do this. Brown. Okay, let's make it brown. And border radius, let's give it 50%. And then let's do the display and put it in line block. Now you can see that is the eye. We're gonna put a space between. Now let's use margin 0.18 pixels. Yes, that works. Then let's do animation. Blink. Let's ask it to blink 4 seconds infinite. So that means it's gonna be blinking. So for this animation to work, we are going to add some keyframes. Yeah. But before we do that, let's also style the mouth. Then, so we have the mouth. Let's give it a width of 28. Let's give it a height of 14. Let's give it border bottom. Is border bottom 4 pixels solid. I think we're gonna use the same color, which is 333. It's right there. Then let's give it a border radius 20 pixels, 20 pixels. Then let's space it. So we're gonna give it a margin 10 pixels. We do auto 0. Now that we have our smiley face. We're almost done, guys. Let's work on this keyframe blink. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add here keyframes, and the identifier is blink. So we shall just do 0%, 45%, and 100%. 100%. We shall just do transform. Let's do transform scale Y. Let's give it 1. Then let's do the 50%, and let's do transform scale Y 0.1. Now it's working. Yes. Now let's style the last two classes, which is Sosa and Shadow is what we are left with, right? The last one is Shadow. Let's start with Sosa. We're gonna give it position absolute, and also bottom we're gonna put it at 45 pixels. Then left, let's give it 50%. Then transform, translate X, negative 50%. So let's give it background. Let's give it a background of white. And then we give it a width of 240 pixels. And then height, 35 pixels. Then border radius, 50%. Then box shadow, let's go 0, 5 pixels, 10 pixels. Then we do RGBA, red we give it 0, green 0, blue 0, and then alpha, let's give it 0.1. That is the Sosa. So let's see. Yes. So that is it. Then let's tell the shadow and call it a day. So the shadow is gonna, we are gonna give it a position as well. Absolute. Bottom 20 pixels. Okay. Left 20 left, let's give it 50%. Transform. Let's do translate X and give it negative 50%. Width, let's give it 220. Then height, let's give it 25 pixels. Background, RGA. Red, let's give it 0. Green, let's give it 0. 0. And then alpha, let's give it 0.12. That's the shadow right there. And then we're gonna give it a border radius, 50%. Then let's do filter. We're gonna do blur, 8 pixels. So that is our coffee mug. So let's go through the code together. We're gonna go through the HTML. In the HTML, you're just gonna create different classes, scene, cup, and the coffee subclasses. And then we are also gonna create the Sosa and the shadow. And then in the CSS file, we are basically working with position here. As you notice, we are working with position and also a couple of keyframes, as you can see. So once you go through all this, this is the overview of the CSS file. You will have something like this. You have something like this. Feel free to customize it. I feel like the distance between the stem and the cup is a bit high, so let's just modify that. You can modify it the way you want. You can customize this however you want. So thank you for watching, and the code is on GitHub. Feel free to check it out and follow through. Feel free to subscribe.